Fantastic, very good. Well, thank you, Derek, and thank you, Kelly. And I think we've got a couple of other panelists that need to go on to
Let me bring
camera,
them in.
so we'll wait for that. But super interesting introduction from Kelly that really kind of highlights the potential if you really think broadly in terms of what's possible. Fundamentally new ways of engaging with consumers, fundamentally new ways of delivering experiences, and then economics that will continue to improve. So with that, I want to welcome our distinguished panel. So welcome everybody. And we've already got a little bit of a snippet from Kelly, so I'll get him to introduce himself last. But we have Mark Moyou from NVIDIA. We have Amanda Cole from Bloomreach. We have John Shao from 517. And also Kelly Goetsch from Commerce School. So with that, Mark, I'd love for you to say a few words about who you are, what you do, and maybe one interesting fact.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So I work at NVIDIA as an SA on retail, so a solutions architect. So I work with the nation's top retailers and CPGs on doing all of their machine learning and accelerating all of their data processing. So I get to see sort of where the world is moving at scale. And maybe one interesting fact, I have 3 podcasts.
Wow, fantastic! Not one but 3. So you have to tell people which one to subscribe to, or maybe all of the above. So thank you so much, Mark. Great to have you at this event. So with that, I'd love to go to Amanda. So Amanda, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. Hey guys, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Bloomreach. I think I was added to this panel to use normal human words. The rest of you are so technical. So hopefully I can do a good job adding some stories, but very excited to be here.
Fantastic, very good. And maybe that is your one interesting fact to add a little bit of a normal tone to everything else. Fantastic. So John Shao, welcome. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and one interesting fact.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. I'm one of the co-founders here at 517, the CTO and the head cheerleader. And working with our customers, responsible for tech side, excited to be on this panel. Fun fact, just recently got into mountain biking.
Oh, fantastic. Very good. Kelly, so please reintroduce yourself and we'll go from there.
I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Commerce Tools and co-founder of the Mock Alliance. And I believe we're all in the Cool Kids Club here in the Mock Alliance.
Fantastic. Very good. Well, glad to be part of the Cool Kids Club. So with that, let's dive straight in. So I'd love to start with you, Mark. So I think you touched upon this, which is, you're speaking to all the big retailers and brands, and it's clearly NVIDIA and AI, kind of maybe the 2 words are somewhat synonymous these days. What do you see as the potential? What do you talk about when you talk to these folks?
Well, I think the first thing is what's on everyone's mind is, what can I do today? Because that's always sort of the beat, I think, in retail and commerce. And I think the thing that we're seeing is just data quality. Because as you think of really large product catalogs at scale, it's very difficult to sort of control that vocabulary mismatching problem. And if you really take a step back, the entirety of commerce to some degree is a vocabulary matching problem, meaning a retailer or a brand has a particular vocabulary. In addition, each person submitting their product has their own vocabulary. And then me as a user or customer across the entire customer base has that sort of vocabulary. So I think that's an area where LLMs are doing quite well, because before, the way that you would try to solve that problem is you either have a ton of manual NLP rules, or lots of different merchants will inject their their expertise into how to represent the entire population. But now with the larger context windows, as Kelly was mentioning, you can now ingest a lot of this data and allow LLMs to process it. One thing on context length, just so that everyone knows, in case you did not know, a context length includes both your input and your output. So as you think of 1 million tokens, if you send in 1 million in input, you're not technically going to get any output. So I just wanted to put that little anecdote in there for you. And that's one. And then in addition, I think the customer-facing use cases are still, folks are being very careful with that. Just because you don't know what an LLM is going to say to your entire population of customers. So working step in step, trying to make sure that those LLMs align to your brand is sort of a big, hardcore area of work right now.
That's super interesting. I think on the latter topic, I certainly know, Microsoft got into a little bit of a bother over this with some of their AI technology when, it was saying things to people that were less than optimal, should we say. So I guess kind of diving in, Mark, when we chatted previously, there were a number of areas that you were particularly interested in the areas of perishable items, education, etc. So we would love for you to dive in and tell us a bit more about those and supply chain and vision and all these wonderful problems that, can be solved with AI within the retail space.
Yes, absolutely. So this topic is around vision language models. That's the new hot kid on the block, essentially. And so think of, you give an LLM a bunch of text, it understands that text and gives you some output text. Now with vision language models, you give it an image, as Kelly was mentioning before. In addition, you might even give it a video and ask it to interpret certain things in that video. So I sort of highlighted a slightly theoretical thing. If you go inside of a grocery store, there are lots of perishable items. And oftentimes you'll see someone, especially in the meat section, they're going and checking every single tag. So you have the capabilities coming up soon to train these models to do sort of very specific tasks if you collect that data. So that's on the tell me what's happening in this video slide. And in addition, there's other things where you can see people in fashion. I think this notion of AI assisted fashion or fashion consultants that align to a brand's sort of values, vernacular. If I'm in a high-end fashion brand versus maybe going to something like Ross, they're very different ways that you sort of alter my style. And that is a mix of understanding the visual content, in addition, aligning or pulling in relevant what you call products into an actual LLM or vision LLM to respond to you. And then there's that sort of text to speech pipeline that will come, give me a really nice voice that makes me feel I'm in a room with a high-end designer. So those are two examples on the vision side. And when it comes to supply chain, so at NVIDIA, we do a lot. NVIDIA is an accelerated compute company. Most folks think of us as a GPU company or really accelerated compute. And all that means is that we enable computations to happen 10x, 100x faster than traditional compute. And with that, in the simulation supply chain space, you can run simulations quite fast on GPUs. So as you think of different types of planning across different scenarios that you may be trying to figure out, GPUs are a great fit for that.
Fantastic. Well, accelerated computing. I love that. I will remember that next time I hear about NVIDIA. So, those are a great bunch of applications. I think certainly we hear about kind of like, optimizing, the user experience. So with that, I wanted to kind of segue. Thank you, Mark, and we'll open up for questions from the audience in a minute. But I want to welcome Amanda. So Amanda, thank you once again for joining us. So can we talk a little bit about kind of, the evolving ways in which, brands and retailers can engage with the audiences, and kind of Mark touched upon kind of this concept of hyper-personalization, as I call it, which is really understanding your consumer. How do you think the online experience is going to evolve?
Yeah, I mean, Kelly touched on this a bit, and it's certainly not new information. I think we've all experienced it, but the biggest transformation we're seeing related to Gen AI in particular is in search, and then consumer expectations really around how they search. And I think ChatGPT came hard for the information retrieval space. And so as a result, the market as a whole expects that consumers are going to be trained away from keyword searches into natural language searches or even visual searches, as we're talking about. And so our plain language version of that is conversations. And when you think about personalization or hyper-personalization, the ultimate form of that is conversation. But consumers have been demanding personalization for a really long time. And I think when consumers say personalize for me, they mean know me, understand me, talk to me in context. They don't just mean there was some level of personalization on a communication that I got. And the reality is we haven't delivered on that for a really, really long time. And it's only going to become much more important for us to do that in the context of conversations. So as we think about moving into what it's going to be like to, in real time and in context, have conversations, you've got to connect data with products and behavior of the consumers themselves. And we're actually in partnership with NVIDIA and Google building a conversational product. And I know this is about real examples. So let me jump into an example of what this looks like. Kelly talked earlier about high consideration purchases. So one of our customers is a mattress company, and they rolled out our conversational product, our conversational expert product. And as consumers were engaging with this conversation, what we saw was that they were really asking it questions and trying to build confidence in their purchase. In the same way that today, historically, you read through reviews and you make sure that other people have given feedback about this product that make you feel good about buying it for your use case, they're now doing this in a conversational way. And as a result, we've seen that conversions have increased, that itself has increased, because we're building confidence again in context with that customer. And when you compare that to how we try to engage and increase purchases and basket size today with pop-up offers or customers like you bought this thing, it's a wholly different experience for the consumer.
Hey, Mo, can I just
go ahead, Mark,
share something on that? So to Kelly's point, as folks are thinking, he was giving this roadmap about what's going to happen in the next couple of years. I have an interesting sort of mattress story, sort of, a horrible experience where you go lay down in the store and things feel really nice. All of a sudden you walk out with a mattress and you're doing 5 different returns. And I think the capturing of data sets across a business is the most strategic thing that people could be doing right now. Even if you have no clue how you're going to leverage it at some point, and this voice of the customer data set is so powerful. Especially I interviewed someone who was talking about the art of merchants, and a merchant's responsibility is to represent the entire population, to offer the best products back to that population. And I think LLMs, as you're saying, will help personalize on these very highly considerable, not cheap purchases. So I just wanted to sort of reinforce the importance of getting points like that right and the impact that it can have.
Totally agree.
Yes, you definitely don't want to be sleeping on the wrong type of mattress, as I found out in my many travels.
And also, I think, there is a lot of improvement on just product description. Different marketplaces have different customer base, and you want to tailor your product description, the images towards that particular marketplace and customer base. That's available today. People should be leveraging that today. And for merchants that have 1,000 SKUs, that was a lot of work before, but now it's just easily accessible to everyone. It's just really transformative right now for this.
Yeah, I mean, we go so far as to say that this is giving you an opportunity, particularly in the commerce side, to be less focused on products, because LLMs and AI, for the most part, has really solved a lot of the product challenges, the tagging challenges, the cataloging challenges, and it gives you an opportunity to really be focused on people. And I think that transformation, that even changes your KPIs and your strategy as a business, because you no longer have to worry about, well, you have to worry about it for sure, but it doesn't take as much time to worry about relevance and ranking as it does creating an experience for an individual that's, again, conversational and context aware.
Fantastic. Good. I don't know if Kelly has anything to add on that topic of hyper-personalization.
I think the key is tie into everything that it knows about you. So again, your calendar, your bank statement, pictures of you, your travel, right? Those types of things are increasingly going to be used to personalize. And right now, the state of personalization it's okay, right? But it's much more people who bought this also bought that, and maybe a little bit more than that. But I think we're going to get to a point where it knows what you have in your closet.
If you let it.
Our AI overlords know everything, and they're going to be making much better recommendations for us.
I welcome that day, Kelly.
Yeah, I wanted to share something.
You might end up with the lumberjack shirts, Kelly lumberjack shirts, before you know it. So go ahead, Mark.
No, yeah. So there's this thing. So I interviewed a gentleman. I think he's the chief scientist at Shopify, and one thing that he sort of reminded me is that previously, when people did machine learning, for instance, let's say in personalization, I describe you as your history of views, clicks, purchases, etc., etc. And that becomes your definition of who you are inside of a business. And now with language models, you describe that problem in natural language. And you're essentially almost doing math and algorithms in natural language. So it's a sort of fundamental shift in how we resonate with customers, how we receive them, how we represent them internally, to understand how to serve them better. So I just wanted everyone to, I think a merchant has way more power now, let's say, or anyone who has intuition into some subpopulation can now inject and have impact in the business. And it's not just only a data scientist that can help drive this type of impact.
Totally agree. Yep.
Fascinating. So that's a good segue, actually, Amanda. You were, of course, telling me about when we were prepping for this, about this research that you guys had done that you're going to announce the results of. Can you give us a sneak peek into some of that? I know you're announcing in a few weeks, but
yeah, we have our
share with the audience.
Sure. Yeah, we have our event with NVIDIA and Google next week in London, actually. And one of the things that we've been really looking at is how comfortable are companies actually using Gen AI in real life situations. And what we certainly have found is that not all of our customers really are comfortable launching this application. It's very, very focused internally. And again, to stay true to what I promised Mo was that I would focus on use cases and not our product. We have an example of another customer. They're an ed tech company. They have 6 brands and they have tens of thousands of products. They really wanted to get into the conversational space, but they were not comfortable to surface this conversation to their customers. But because they have a ton of in-store, maybe we can help our in-store associates better answer questions when people come into the store. And so we enabled their entire employee base with this conversational product expert on tablet devices. What they found was they were able to dramatically improve the time with which the store associates could answer questions, but at the same time, they were actually also training the models so that when AI was ready to surface to the consumer side, that it had the language that they use. It took their brand voice. It had the feedback from the human product experts when it would make a recommendation that wasn't exactly right. And after a few months of going through that process with their internal employees, they are now rolling it out to their live sites. So I think that's what, and again, you guys talked about this at the beginning, that we're at this really interesting precipice where we all see the urgent need, all us as C-suite see the urgent need to create a competitive advantage by being the first ones, or at least the early adopters, to figure out how we're going to be able to deploy our strategy 5 times faster than everybody else and generate a bunch of revenue using AI. But there is absolutely this huge amount of caution, because we've also seen the negative brand impacts, like you mentioned, with Microsoft in doing this.
No, really makes sense. And I think this touches upon the kind of this whole area, and we're obviously not trying to too deeply into tech, but this area kind of hallucinations, which is, with any new tech, there's always kind of things that people use or cite as reasons to hold back from it. And I think with AI, it seems to be kind of bias and hallucinations and stuff. So I'm interested to kind of see, let's start with Mark, which is, Mark, how do you think about this? And when retailers ask you about this, what do you say to them? Because obviously it's a concern, as is data privacy and IP and things. How do people think about it?
I think that maybe 2 or 3 ways that folks go after it. So the full, 100% customer facing use case, I don't think you see as much of that across many different brands, just because of what Amanda is saying, you don't exactly know how to align this thing to your brand identity. So as technologies like fine tuning and sort of that, you can get models or open source models to align to your brand as much. So sort of sophisticated folks do have, let's say, big models, and they also have open source models that they really sort of focus in and try to get quite nuanced in how this thing is going to respond to try to limit its scope. And I think another really hard problem, especially in retail, is one, where did that training data come from? So there's always sort of that legal aspect to it when you use a model. In addition, sort of that brand competition, you don't want, technically, if I'm brand A and I have a competitor brand B, I don't want brand B's positioning happening higher within sort of my domain. And I still think that's a fairly open problem, especially as your catalog is wider. The wider your catalog I think the tougher it becomes to sort of enforce a lot of those guardrails. So NVIDIA has a open source project called Guardrails, so where you can implement either before a query hits the actual LLM, hey, I'm going to stop this thing. While it retrieves some documents or retrieves some products that are the best, you can sort of inject some guardrails there. After the model has said something, before the user sees it, you have a different level of controls that you can sort of program. So there are mechanisms for you to control each step of the generation to try to reduce that impact of the LLM saying something quite strange. So I do think you'll see, as fine-tuning and stuff becomes a lot easier, you'll see folks really starting to adapt these models to their data, because that's where you really end up getting them to align to your brand mostly, not just out of the box big ones. For generic items, they work well, but I have some super niche brand that, pattern t-shirts for people from the Caribbean. That's quite niche to a degree.
That's super interesting. So I want to kind of have the rest of the panel talk a little bit about this topic, because it's one of my favorite topics as well. So Kelly, what are your thoughts? I know certainly at Commerce Tools, you guys are doing things with AI internally in the way you work. And tell us a little bit about how you guys think about this, which is the AI comes out with something that actually doesn't make sense. And of course, you're super confident about it as well, right? How do you guys think about that? How do you reduce the barrier?
I think for problems that have much more binary outputs, like what product do I recommend or what price, I think that's relatively easy to put guardrails around. Where you run into challenges is with open-ended outputs, so the chatbots of the world. And you saw this with Air Canada. Somebody talked a chatbot into a free refund that they weren't allowed to. A General Motors dealer put this in place, I think in Texas, and ended up selling a consumer a Tesla. And I don't know if you remember, but about 18 months ago, there was a very famous New York Times article where a journalist tricked an AI into confessing its love for him and encouraged him to leave his wife. So that is not a solved problem yet. It's difficult. It's not solved. And I think before we see mass consumer adoption and we see brands really exposing the full power of AI to consumers, that needs to be solved. So I hope Guardrails fixes that from NVIDIA. I would also recommend folks use RAG, which is Retrieval Augmented Generation. And we're going to see a lot more calls from LLMs to authoritative data sources like commerce platforms, like CMSs, where those calls will provide the authoritative data or guardrails over the top of whatever output is generated.
Both of those are actually great. And certainly, going with trusted data and learning from trusted data versus, the internet, obviously can have a lot of impact in terms of giving everybody confidence that the data is there and it's good. Amanda, I know you, it's a topic you and I talked about, this, area of hallucinations. And I think one of your customers taken a very practical view around how do I provide a modern approach, with some guardrails. So
yeah, I think I shared that story maybe a little prematurely related to the EdTech company, because that was certainly what was preeminent in their mind in trying to solve for that. But I think, Kelly, even as you were saying, what's super interesting is that we're seeing consumers have a lot of space and grace for the ChatGPTs of the world. So the new up and coming AI companies who are very innovative, who are on the cusp of innovation, who are kind of redefining what an experience looks like. There's a lot of, like, Perplexity is another one. There's a lot of like, oh, that's so funny that the AI got it wrong. But brands that have had relationships with consumers for a really long time, when they mess up, it's a much bigger deal. And again, not to go back to the hyper personalization story, but that is where we see the disconnect, is that consumers are like, wait a minute, I've had a relationship with you for 10, 15, 20 years. Why would your understanding of me and the products that I purchased and the relationship that I've had with you as a consumer not be in context of the conversation that we're having now? And so I'd say that's the biggest disconnect that we see, is how AI is applied with these new entrants where it's allowed to be experimental versus the companies who you believe have a lot of data on you and should better understand how to engage with you as a consumer. So I think, again, this puts a bigger onus on these brands who have had customer data, even though we know it's not all in one place, to actually pull that data together, as we talked about earlier, and use that to deliver these experiences. And again, that is absolutely going to require guardrails so that the LLM, the external internet data, doesn't conflict with who your brand is and what you know about your customer.
Oh, makes sense. I guess don't unleash the AI chatbot on your customers, for one. So, John, anything to add to this general topic of
I mean,
how do we make sure the AI does the right thing?
I think everyone covered it pretty well. It just, to kind of echo what Kelly says, like RAG has become really accessible, I think. Like everyone can do it now. So what wasn't like easily doable 6 months ago, like now everyone can do. So I think this is a rapidly moving where you can continue to augment your AI models with the correct information to improve. And for everyone that's implementing, it still kind of amazes me that people don't track like what's being asked, what's being responded, asking the end user for feedback. Do we generate the right answer? Do we generate the wrong one? What's wrong with it? I think this continuous improvement is necessary to always ensure that hey, you're moving the goalpost forward on that correctness and reducing hallucination.
Oh, perfect. Very good. So with that, I kind of want to segue to the operational side of things, and then before coming back up again. And so obviously, if you think about applications of AI, Kelly talked a little bit about kind of AI will change the way people buy, it'll change the way people sell and engage with brands. But one area that I think is kind of interesting as part of that is how people manage their business, how brands, retailers, etc., manage their businesses. And of course, Mark talked about some of the technologies on the retail side, like video, for example, to analyze things like perishable, and I assume cycle counts in warehouses and various other things are kind of similar things. What do you see as the possibilities for operations, broadly speaking? Which is, how can brands and retailers optimize their operations, using AI technology?
So I think the stuff that people require, an operation analyst or the data analyst before, can be easily done by tools today. You can give it the data about your, order volume, your inventory. You can quickly find out like what product is selling well. Maybe you should be creating bundles of different products to increase the average order value. Sinking into inventory planning, just like the simple answer, hey, what inventory are running out based on my sale volume? Maybe what geographic location is doing good in sales? All of these analytical capabilities are just more accessible to everyone now by leveraging AI. And even when something goes wrong, like you're getting exception, what does it really mean? Like you're getting the system error, it can help put that message to plain text, helping you understand what went wrong, how you should be correcting it. In a way, it's almost having your personal like business ops person that's sitting by the side, helping you to manage your business, driving efficiencies. And the last thing is like AI not only can answer the questions, but it can also help you ask the questions. It can look at your data, help you figure out what you don't know. Like people don't know what they don't know, right? So there's a wide range of improvements people can do, and this give you this capability give you the insight to look at the data, to help you ask the questions, help you answer some of these questions, and then ultimately improve your operation at the end of the day.
Cool, very good. I know Mark was frantically typing away in the chat for people. So Mark, what do you think of this whole area of kind of the way people run their businesses? If you think about large retailers, or if you think about the large brands, how can they be more efficient in the way they operate and get goods to people that people actually want to buy at the right time?
Yeah, the right time. Well, one, I think coming back to how do you do that scenario planning, so running different simulations quite fast if you're doing route optimization, getting that sort of processed a lot faster. In addition, behind the scenes, there are lots of computational jobs that run in order for you to aggregate all of this disparate information to get some relevant conclusion, then to take an action. So the faster that you can get a lot of those jobs, those computational jobs or data processing jobs completed, it gives you sort of that avenue. And then I think sort of a future-facing thing is this notion of experts within the business. So for some domains where these individuals, these humans in the business are providing tremendous value. They intuitively understand, different sections of the business, and they allow things to operate. Excuse me, they enable things to allow to operate quite efficiently. So then just capturing their knowledge, capturing their best practices, also, giving them sort of that payment back or that recognition, whatever sort of strategy that business comes up with. Because I think you're coming into this era of brain drain to a degree. Next 10, 15 years, a lot of the experts who would have been in the business, they might be getting to retire. So how is that business now going to turn around and manage their operation? So just that knowledge capturing, I think, is a good sort of silent preparation for what can be done later on.
That's super interesting. Kelly or Amanda, would you like to add anything to that area of how people run their businesses more efficiently?
I think to begin with, we're going to see humans augmented by AI, and we're seeing this already. Think of the Pippins of the world. A lot of co-pilots out there make humans much more efficient. I think even longer term, we're going to see AI not be an augmentation tool, but the tool itself. And I think it will manage a lot of the back-end business processes as opposed to a human doing it with the support of AI. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, historically, and I have doom and gloom moments, as white collar work done, what does this mean long term? But if you look at every technological trend, historically, it's made us all as a society better off, higher standard of living, wealthier. And AI is just another one of those. We're going to have fewer people doing more valuable, better work. And ultimately, that benefits workers and it benefits consumers.
Benefiting everybody is good. So with that, just a quick reminder to all the audience, so please put your questions in chat. I think we have one coming up. We have a few minutes for chat as well. Look, I want to kind of go for the last question to Kelly, and this is kind of bringing us back up, which is, start with Kelly at least, which is, you talked a lot about the promise. And, this panel's touched upon a lot of areas that you can apply things. We've touched upon a little bit in terms of at least some of the areas where you need to be a little bit more prudent. Can you talk through what you hear from customers and what barriers you see for adoption in terms of what you see?
What I hear from customers is my board or my CEO has demanded we do something, anything with AI. I have no idea what to do. Please help, be prescriptive, guide, anything. And it feels very much like a FOMO thing, fear of missing out. There's a lot of hype in the market. And again, I think we tend to overestimate the impact of technology in the short run, but underestimate it in the long run. And now it's a lot of superficial checking the checkbox type exercises. But I think a good trough of disillusionment would do us all well as an industry. And we're going to have decades of a plateau of productivity in Gartner speak when it comes to AI. And I'm already seeing native AI companies be born now. They're in the seed to A stage. Give them a few more years, and that's really going to change how consumers buy things, how consumers engage with each other, how companies work internally. So I think give us a little bit of time, and I think it's going to be bigger than any of us here think that it's going to be.
Well, that's huge. Mark, what do you want to add to that big picture?
Yeah, I think, even though...
What do you hear from customers and stuff?
Yeah, one could argue hype or not, but I think it's truly important to at least get one POC done. for end to end, regardless of what you call it, sort of that business value. Those internal teams need, I think, to develop that muscle and also to find where all of the blockers are within that enterprise. Sometimes legal might block you. Sometimes you might not actually have access to certain hardware. Sometimes you might have access to data sources. So it's good to go through that end-to-end exercise, regardless of what model you use. Like I said, what use case it depends on, and then sort of get yourselves ready, because I don't think it's a if Gen AI, I just think it's a when Gen AI. And as you sort of get prepared for that, I think I interviewed someone and he was reminding me of Gen AI now feels like what e-commerce was like in the early days, and you guys are much more experts than I am. And he talked about that 15-20 year cycle that it took for e-commerce to really grab on, and maybe this one is compressed because I do think the infrastructure is there now. I don't think the data infrastructure was there before to really scale. So, take a small bet, end-to-end POC, and just, level set up and down in terms of who controls your budget. But I think that positions you to move a lot faster if it does take off.
I love that pragmatic approach. Go and do something so you can learn what it is, right? That's great, sagely advice. Amanda, so obviously you guys are on the forefront of some of this. What do you talk to customers about, and what do they say?
Yeah, I mean, search has always been, or at least for the last decade, has been an AI problem or a problem solved by AI. And so I think we've been deeply rooted in how AI actually operates in your business and the data infrastructure to support it. I think it would be remiss to say that hasn't totally transformed by the accessibility of AI, and even like Kelly's been talking about, AI training AI, like it's just exploding and it's changing so much faster than we can possibly imagine. And as a result, consumer experiences are changing. So I think, and I see the chat going off about how AI is not the strategy. It's an enabler of the strategy. And that's exactly right. That ultimately what we should be focused on is how do we differentiate? How do we build a brand that connects with consumers? And then ultimately, what are the tools that we have to help us achieve that strategic reality much faster? And I think AI is giving us an edge there. But Kelly, just as you said, that's what our customers are coming to us saying, like, give me the 5 slides I can take to my board meeting to say that we're doing stuff with AI. And as a CMO, I've talked a lot about search, but marketing is being dramatically changed, because when you think about the ability to create variants, images, copy, subject lines, do testing, all of those things, like that's another area where there is a lot of fear in marketing circles about, are we going to have marketers anymore? Kelly just created a whole brand overnight, said he doesn't need a brand agency anymore. And so but if we shy away from that, I mean, again, I started my technology pre-WordPress. And so I kind of was in the revolution of like, oh, web builders and web developers aren't going to exist anymore. But NVIDIA is hiring a ton. Google's hiring a ton. OpenAI is hiring a ton. There are jobs being created everywhere. And marketing is not going to be the same job. But if you run away from the reality that AI is totally transforming what our role is going to be, you also won't have a job. So absolutely lean in, try the tools, test it, make mistakes. You're going to fail. That's okay. That's the stage that we're in.
The key, though, is to do something. It's doing something.
Do something. Just do it. Yeah. John, thoughts?
Okay. Do something, but don't just put up a chat box that's hooked into OpenAI. Actually solve some problems, I think, is the key here. Like Kelly actually told me something way early. Like AI shouldn't, especially generative AI, shouldn't just be about a chat box, but it should just make everything better. Everything within your product be better, improve your efficiency, improve your dev team, improve your customer experience. Like the outcome shouldn't be, hey, I can talk to this person, talk to this thing, using a chat box, but it's actually improving your entire business and improving it, the efficiency there.
Yeah, it shouldn't be the thing that it shouldn't be the headline. It should just make everything better, whether or not it happens to use AI behind the scenes.
That's great advice. And I think in tandem with that, at least one of the things, Kelly and I spoke about when we're chatting about this panel was just in terms of the potential impact that AI has on disintermediating specific businesses. So if you think about, considered purchases, if you think about the way you go to, one of the AI assistants and you type what you're looking for, Amanda used the mattress example, right? I want something firm, I want organic cotton, whatever. And you put that into there and it comes up with a bunch of recommendations for you. There's no ads in that, at least not today. There's no retargeting. I'm not reading any reviews. The AI is reading the reviews. And I'm largely making my decision based on what the AI tells me, which kind of has impact on advertising business, has impact on publishing business. So I think there's some really interesting ramifications around kind of what we spoke about, but also one of the things Kelly led with, which is AI is the new interface. So if you think about AI as the new interface, then kind of the world changes. And maybe optimizing things would be great, but optimizing your advertising in the short term is great. But should you be optimizing for ChatGPT and Claude and various other things instead? Or is it something that you should be doing? You should be optimizing what you're doing today. Good. So with anything to add before I want to open up, because I think there are a few questions from folks online, which I want to make sure we can hit before I get all of you to summarize.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
What you were saying. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Good.
What were you saying about changing search? This feels very much like Google did in 2002, 2003, right? Unspoiled by commercial interests, magical, it worked, right? There were very minimal ads. It was beautiful. And look, I get it, right? I don't want to get too philosophical here, but we all have shareholders and have to make money eventually. But I hope the same thing doesn't happen with AI, where these nice, clean consumer experiences we have today become cluttered with all sorts of ads and paid placements and everything else, because it's taken some of the magic off of the Googles of the world.
You mean you don't love the endless pages of sponsored search results? Mark, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to share one thing. We're talking a lot about AI. One thing I think I want to make sure it's on everyone's mind is that the people inside your business can solve your business problems. It doesn't always have to be some external person with all this technology that you can bring in. So shifting your culture to collect what is the true collective idea of all of the experts within your company and allow them to contribute. Because I think before, the main challenge was there was not a sort of execution pipeline with which to get these things done. So I think now you have both the execution pipeline, now coupled with the entire brain power of your current organization. I think you could actually see a lot of wins come out of that.
Great. Well, that's a good way to think about it. So we have a few questions. So I'd love to open up for one of them, which I think is on everybody's mind, which is, and Kelly touched upon this, how will AI impact manpower? Very exciting one. So who wants to hit that one first?
I can. It takes the cost of human intelligence and it makes it basically zero. Right? If you think about our labor market, fundamentally, at least in white collar work, people are renting our brain power. They're renting our intelligence. And with AI, that work becomes basically zero. And you think about it like before we had industrialization, right? And then we had machines which amplified humans' productivity. I think we're going to see the same thing with AI. Yes, the unit cost of physical labor is a lot cheaper with machines, and now we're going to see the same thing with AI. Human intelligence becomes a lot cheaper because it's augmented with AI.
I think we touched. Anybody else want to add anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, Amanda. I think we touched on this a little bit earlier. That AI has been used as a co-pilot, and we believe strongly at Bloomreach that AI will become the pilot, but there's still a role for the human in air traffic control, and there's still quite a bit that needs to be watched and monitored and evolved, and there's still quite a bit of guidance, and that may not be true in 5 years or 10 years. But it's definitely true for the next several. And right now we're certainly in the phase where we are in the try and test. We are in the phase where a really big concern is who has built and trained AI to date, and is it fair? Is it going to be representative of the population? Is it going to treat people equally? Because that's very dependent on the information that's available. I think in one of the studies that we saw on ads, when you ask AI to create ad copy, it started to get racist and sexist because it saw that those ads had significantly better engagement than other ads, because it doesn't have context of human emotion. It's just saying, okay, here's an outcome you want. I'm going to give you the fastest way to get that outcome without thinking through the consequences of that. And so I think we do have a period of time where there's going to be a lot of understanding the role of AI in our businesses, but ultimately our job as leaders is to, as we said earlier, be really clear about what our strategy is. Try and test technology that is likely to enable us to get to our strategy faster than our competitors, and to do it in a way in which we believe we are treating our customers fairly and treating our employees fairly. That's ultimately always our job as leaders.
I love it. I love it. So, John, I'm going to go to one. I want to take a few more questions and we'll come back to you.
Okay.
So there's a question, which is, what's your take on verticality in AI systems? Because I think this is a really good question from Arthur. And it says, it's pretty hard to imagine a one-size-serves-all provider that would be good for cranes, and then the next day for beauty and apparel and all these other things with the customer service part. This is a really good question, because I think in the early days of certainly, chatbot technology, I remember 10 years ago with no AI, it was pretty clear that, each vertical basically required its own consulting project and each customer required its own thing. Who wants to hit this one?
Yeah, I just want to chime in there. So I think you're seeing a lot of folks leverage sort of open source models to do that. And they're leveraging this concept of a LoRaWAN adapter. So you train, essentially, you have a base model that has some generic knowledge. And then you have a smaller adapter that's trained to, let's say, beauty. It's trained for furnishing. It's only seen that type of data. And what that does to sort of your overall inference deployment actually reduces your cost quite a lot. So if I had 5 use cases, typically, as you were saying, you might have 5 separate actual models doing that. And now what you see is I have a single base model and I have 5 smaller adapters. I'll just use my 5 fingers. And now I can deploy that on a single or a smaller set of GPUs. So that now actually reduces your overall sort of inference costs, but gives you that coverage across different use cases. So you can segment these models to focus in on particular domains by, leveraging fine tuning and different techniques like that.
Any other takers on the vertical side of things?
I'd go so far to say as it's not just about verticals. I think there is a unique company experience as well, because in the same way where we talked about large language models, and yes, you can apply verticalization to it. And there's actually a lot of AI tools that broadly help you understand a vertical. We're using AI fairly regularly in market research because we obviously cover a lot of different verticals. And you're right, beauty is very different. Even the KPIs that they use and the way that they talk about their products and consumers is very different from a parts manufacturer on the B2B side, for sure. But B2B manufacturers in and of themselves are different. There are different value propositions and different differentiators that they have and different product sets that are profitable for them. And so the organization itself really needs to be invested in, as Mark was saying, training the models and building out how AI is going to be used in that business against the strategy, not to beat a dead horse. So I think it's beyond verticalization. I actually don't think verticalization is the challenge. I think it's the company specific response to AI that's the bigger lift.
Okay, and I'm with you, which is being consistent if you're an airline, not to give people refunds, which is what they love doing.
I want all the refunds.
Okay,
I wish it had been me that got the free ticket.
It must be you. It must be you. Anybody else want to take that verticalization question before we take another question?
Yeah, similarly, it's not just personalization, but it's like augmenting AI with the data that you have. Someone told me a long time ago that every company is a data company at the end of the day. I think the AI race just makes it even worse at this point. So knowing about your customer, knowing about your operation, providing that data so, these powerful tools could be tailored to your use case, to your brands is even more critical than 6 months ago almost. So yeah, it's definitely, you want to fine tune these tools to your use cases and to get that improvement.
Makes a huge amount of sense. I want to take a couple of questions. I know we're kind of running out of time, but I'd love to take them because they're here. So there's a question from Michael, which is currently company is a commerce integrator, and integrators at the end of the day have a critical role in helping large companies take new technology forward. They're using AI tooling for recommendations and customer feedback integration, which seem great use cases. Could you point me in other directions for use cases to explore? Just kind of, again, talking about applications for AI within a commerce company. Low-hanging fruit, things you take tomorrow that your commerce platform may or may not be doing.
Yeah. Right, Kelly.
I think what Amanda said in chat is valid. So search, most search today is document-based. It's incredibly basic. It's basically just doing a database query behind the scenes, and you have to enrich the data. So that's really low-hanging fruit. I think the other is longer term. Get something where you can take in you supply as a customer a cloud, your key to the cloud, maybe your commerce platform, maybe your CMS. You provide a handful of these things and say, build me a website that looks like this. And you feed in a Figma design, or you feed in an existing website. Here's the data, right? And again, that could be from an existing website. It could be a link back to an Oracle database somewhere. But go do all of that for me, because the nuts and bolts work, the low-level development work that SIs do is being commoditized. AI has made that a lot easier these days, even with copilots. Take it a step further and build something that automates it even further. And then as an SI, your value becomes a lot greater because you're able to do a lot more work for your customers.
Yeah, I have a sort of interesting angle to this. I think a lot of the SIs will end up becoming AI companies, essentially. So as this stuff becomes easier, there's always sort of a gap between how the actual end technical team can sort of implement this. Not everyone has data scientists and that have data scientists that understand sort of this full pipeline. So if you just focus on fine-tuning models, if you had a service that said, we can help you fine-tune any open source model, that's of huge value, because the first question is, which one of these things do I use? Do I use the big front-end models? Oftentimes, you're actually using a mix of both. You're never just using one model in your business. So that's another thing, guiding folks to different types of routing strategies. And in addition, like really focus on the multimodal side. So how about just a multimodal exploration service? So you come in for some fixed price, we're just going to go through an ideation and see what the out-of-box model gives you, right? And that can be done. So I think there's many different ways that you can augment and provide value to your customers by just making a lot of this customization and deployment of AI easier.
Excellent, fantastic. So final question for me to close off the panel. So to each of the panelists, I'd love to ask one question, which is either what is the one takeaway you want the audience to leave with? You might want to weave in, what they do today to prepare for an AI, future. But what is the one thing you'd like each of them to walk away with? Mark, you go first.
I think don't put people in a box. The individuals that you have in your team can solve problems and they want to expand their skill set. So give them that opportunity, spend a little budget to give them training, because at the end of the day, I think those people who've been with your organization for a while, if given certain augmentations, they can actually provide a lot of value to the business. So trust the people that you have and continue to just educate the entire business teams about AI, because everyone's going to need to get a little more technical as these things become more and more complex.
Great. Amanda?
I'd say, and usually when I'm talking to the marketing audience specifically, I say don't outsource AI. Absolutely get your own hands in, get dirty. And a lot of the names are very scary. I think it's because marketers haven't gotten their hands on branding these things yet. I did see an article on, I think it was AI as a service. And I was like, does nobody see what the acronym is? So I would say get your hands in AI yourself. Don't outsource it, and absolutely get comfortable with using it because it is our future.
Definitely get your acronyms right. John?
I think just looking towards the future, like I kind of imagine a world where we're going to move away from the configuration UIs, the rules, the filters, like running backend jobs, moving into where we're making complex tooling accessible to non-technical people, right? Is there a future where instead of doing all of this configuration, super technical UI, where someone can just write how their operation want to be run? Like how this is how here's a document on how my e-commerce operation should be run, and AI is making that possible. Is implementing it, is running the tests, and ultimately it's going to run it for you. Like that's super exciting to me, and I eagerly look forward to that future.
Me too. Kelly?
Don't do AI for the sake of doing AI. Do AI to solve business problems. I see way too much pressure from the top down to check that box. People invest in stupid gimmicky products and build stupid gimmicky features that don't actually solve problems that anybody has. There are a lot of problems within most organizations, a lot of problems. Use AI to solve those problems, even if it's an internal problem, rather than just checking the box.
That's fantastic. Go and solve some real problems. There are plenty of problems. You don't have to create ones. So with that, I wanted to offer my huge thanks to all of the panelists. We'll be sending them their standard issue Pipe 17 hoodies so they can wear them on the next series of the webinar. But huge thanks from myself and the audience for this really, really great discussion, and for each and every one of you. So with that, I'd like to hand back to Derek. So thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much. Going to go ahead and remove our panelists here from the stage, and really enjoyed that talk. I wanted to ask my own question about if the e-commerce agency is going to be relevant in the next 3 to 5 years, but we'll hold off on that one as we move into our next session. For Arthur and Gagandeep, we are going to be sending you something like one of these Stanley Cups. I will email you asking for your address for details.